And we're live. Hello and
Hello.
welcome to the Springleaf bonus Patreon Q&A. I like saying Patreon
That's very good. No,
like
not
it's a
enough people say it.
like it's a French dish.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the Patreon.
Also, it looks like we're in we're in different rooms with a split screen, but look at this. Boop.
How did we do that? VFX. Heard of it?
Yeah, VFX, ever heard of it?
Yeah, ever heard of visual effects? Industrial light and magic. Anyway, we're here to do a Q&A with some of the key Patreons, and we're talking about the Springleaf podcast. I'm here with James Acaster, aka Pat Springleaf, and my name is Nish Kumar, and I play Nish Kumar.
He does.
Um, I love drugs, guys, and I will not apologize for it.
He does love it.
Don't cut that out of context and get me in trouble with the papers, okay? I don't want to see Kumar loves drugs in the goddamn Daily Mail. Several of you have sent questions in of, I would say, varying ranges of seriousness, which I think is nice. It's going
Yeah,
to give the Q&A a real texture. There's some of them. Some of you need to take a good, long, hard look at yourselves because some
sure.
of these questions are absolute BS.
But you've paid for the privilege. You're allowed to ask whatever you
You
want.
can ask whatever you want,
You
and
know,
some of you have respect.
so fair enough. Thank you for your money. We can't say that enough.
Thank
Really,
you for
really
your
appreciate
money.
it.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. So fair enough for these questions.
Yeah, actually, somebody should have gone stupid at. I'm now judging you for not
Yeah.
going stupid enough.
Yeah, you could have gone hog wild. Really get some bang for your buck.
I love the expression hog
Hog
wild.
wild's funny.
It's such a funny
It's a
expression.
funny expression.
He's gone absolutely hog
It's
wild.
gone hog wild.
I love somebody once described me as having gone hog wild at a buffet, and it
Yeah,
made me laugh so much.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's get into the more serious questions here. So Marilee, some of them are questioners are named, others of them have chosen to remain anonymous. Marilee has said, James, what was the inspiration for Pat Springleaf's character? Now, I have quite a distinct memory
Yes.
of the first time I saw you do Pat Springleaf, and it was at Old Rope, which is a new material gig in that used to be that's now at the Comedy Store, but used to be the Cavendish. Why have I forgotten the name of the
It's
pub?
the Phoenix.
The
It's the
Phoenix.
Phoenix near Oxford Circus.
And we used to go there I would say every Monday for 3 years,
Yeah.
maybe. 2013, 14, 15. I would say
Yep.
we were there every Monday. And we had just come back from Edinburgh in September 2013. And you had done a show in Edinburgh that you'd got very bored of
Yes.
in the middle of Edinburgh.
Bored.
And you were very bored of it. And so often in September, it was like the first day of school. Like it was the first new
Yeah.
material gig for people trying out what their next show was going to be. And you said to me, I'm going to say that I'm an undercover cop. And I said, well, I guess he had a good run. He had a good run as a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
but he's definitely got off the deep end. He's just, you just kept saying to me, I'm going to say I'm an undercover cop. And I was
Yeah.
like, why? And you're like, I just think it's funny.
Yeah, yeah. That was it. That was all it was. It was, I didn't find, at the time, had not found my previous show funny because I'd taken it too seriously, even though it was a silly show. Uh,
2013, so it was a lawnmower.
yeah, and it was not really a themed show. The second half was loosely themed around me trying to clear the name of Yoko Ono, but there wasn't really any reason behind that. I just kind of like really put unnecessary pressure on myself writing a show. Didn't enjoy the writing process, then didn't enjoy the performing process, and was like, right, well, you obviously can't do this forever. That'd be silly. So I was like, let's just do something that you find inherently funny. It's September, so who gives a shit? I'm going to tell them I'm an undercover cop on set. I think that for what I didn't know why, but that made I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to say that, and it didn't work to begin with. I remember doing a gig in Lincoln, a late night gig in Lincoln with John Richardson as the compere, and I went on and did the undercover cop stuff, and he meant this as a compliment, said that he really admired my commitment to an idea that the audience did not remotely go with for a second. And that he said, I love that you just kept on saying with every routine that you were an undercover cop, even though it was just observational stuff that you could have not been an undercover cop for. You could have just done a routine about oven gloves and you would have been fine, but you had to make it about being in a gang. But
And how quickly did you have the undercover cop idea and the idea of being an undercover cop who was posing as a comedian in order to infiltrate a gang of
I think that
drug
was
dealers.
fairly early because I was having to come up with why
Yeah,
James Acaster, was an undercover cop. So I think that was like the start of it, and maybe the first bit that worked in it. And then I realized I could just make the whole show that. I think I was going to make one routine that.
yeah.
And then I was like, that's the whole show. But then as the year progressed and I was working on that show, then you realize why you've been doing it. So actually, the reason why you've chosen an undercover cop and why you were drawn to it and why you wanted to do it is because you were having a bit of an identity crisis. And so saying you're someone else for a start, but also saying you're someone else and that person is also pretending to be someone else, pretending to be you. And you go, that's why. And then you look at all your material from that show and realize all of it is about uncertainty and not knowing what stuff is, and a lot of identity crisis stuff. And Nish was the main person who helped me with that. So we'd talk to each other a lot about our shows. And we had a night in Melbourne where Nish had seen like the first work in progress of that show, which was called Recognized in I guess 2014.
Yeah, it's the first of the Netflix specials. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying it to these people. These people definitely know
These people
everything.
know it better than
They
I
know it
do.
better than they
But
know it better than you. Yeah.
but yeah. And Nish was like, if you know that this is what this whole show is about and that this is who this character is and this is why you're doing it, you should tell them that and let them in on it, because at the end of the day, we enjoy it more because we know it's about that. So maybe the audience who are paying would.
I have a slightly different memory of it, and my memory of it is that you were doing a line where you slightly threw away in the middle of the show. You would say, maybe I'm not an undercover cop, maybe I'm just someone who's gone through a breakup and is having an identity crisis. And I thought, and that got a laugh.
Right, yeah.
But I remember feeling, oh, I feel a bit cheated. Like I feel like you shouldn't have thrown that away, because that's the whole. That to me was like, that's the whole show. Like that's why you're doing it. But yeah, so I really remember that you assembling the sort of material for that show.
Right.
And then it was, but the thing that always strikes me about it when I sort of think back about that is that I remember very quickly it working.
Yeah.
And again, Old Rope was a gig that people come to see new material, so it's probably naturally got more of a supportive audience because they want stuff to work, and also, to be honest, there were lots of people that would turn up at least every week or once a month to the same gig, and we were always on, so they were probably more excited to see new jokes. But I remember the you saying the case is not going well, but the gigs keep rolling in, and that being a moment where the audience went, "Oh!" Like sort of penny dropping moment.
In London, it worked very good. In London and at comedy festivals, it was worked very quickly. Was not doing well at the late night gigs in Lincoln, and I did not do well when I very ill-advisedly did it during a mixed bill in Bahrain in front of a bunch of expats and
drunk British people who work in the oil industry.
It went bad. It went bad when I pulled the magnifying glass up. Did not go well.
The other thing I remember working very quickly, and also, which is my favorite line in the show, is my two favorite lines in the show are, "My goddamn wife left me because I was getting too involved in the case," because it was just such a, it has the ring of such a specific type of line that characters in cop films say. "My goddamn wife left me because I was getting too involved in the case." And my other favorite line, which was Springleaf, and that's the moment where you would say, "That's my name, my name's Pat Springleaf. Springleaf, please tell me that's not you on the wire recordings defending
the rat."
defending the rat.
Yeah. In the Netflix show, you can see me almost laugh when I shout Springleaf because I know it's his favorite line and he's in the audience. But so to answer your question, it came from where I was. The character came from where I actually was in my life in 2014. But I didn't realize it until I'd finished writing that show.
So then you finish that show, and then you start this like process. And again, you very quickly said, "I'm going to do a trilogy of these shows."
Yeah,
and I'm going to have. I remember when you were doing it represents the second show.
Yeah,
you were like, "This is the second part of 3 shows," and so where did the idea to go back to Springleaf come from?
Oh, I didn't come up with the idea of linking them proper. Originally it was going to be 3 shows that are all themed around me, a ruse that has something to do with the legal system.
Yeah.
but it wasn't going to be in the same universe or
Yeah.
whatever. But then when I decided I was going to film the 3 shows, and then when I was touring it, and relearning the shows, I was doing a tour where I was relearning all 3 shows. And while I was doing that, because I was doing them one night after another, often to the same audience, I'd do callbacks between the shows.
Yeah, right.
And then there was a line that got a laugh in the second show that had never got a laugh the first time I'd done it. So obviously I toured it in 2015. And it was when I would say about being, I used to be in a gang.
Yeah.
And it's just to get into a routine about being in the SW6 gang. But when I said I used to be in the gang, it got a laugh on this tour where I was doing the 3 shows.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that getting like it never used to get that much of a laugh? And then I was like, oh, it's because yesterday they saw me say that I was an undercover cop and I'd infiltrated a gang. So tonight they think that's a callback to last night. And then you go, oh, maybe it could be. And then for my entertainment, I'll see if I can link them together. And because in the first half each night, I'd do a bit of material from way back shows before those 3 shows as well. And I was enjoying doing that as well.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I'll see if I can get that material, repurpose it, reframe it, and say that the whole thing is Pat Springleaf.
I think it's a very telling thing about you as a comedian and person that you thought, for my entertainment, I'll do a lot more work.
A lot more work and make this tour harder.
I do a lot more work and make this tour much harder for myself.
Yeah.
So then where does the idea then? So you got Pat Springleaf, you do all of those shows. Then where does the idea come from for the Springleaf podcast?
Oh, that was back when I did the actual original show in 2014.
Yeah.
And Lindsay Fenner and I, the producer of this podcast,
shout out Fenner, she's on the Zoom.
She's on the Zoom. We had done one series on Radio 4 called
James Acaster's Findings.
Called Findings.
Very funny.
Which featured Nathaniel Metcalf, who's
Hello,
on as well. And I'd done recognise, and I said to Lindsay, I'd like to. There's a bit in it where I play like my wire recordings, and I think it could be a podcast, like an audio sitcom that's within the wire recordings, and then the cop can stop it and defend his actions. And so then that was when it was an idea. So 2014 was when it became an idea, and then we asked a few people if they wanted to make it, and they were like, "No, of course not." Because true crime podcasts weren't as much of a thing.
Right, yeah.
I also wasn't as much of a thing.
Two things that people should have known were going to be a thing: true crime podcasts and James Acaster.
Yeah. So we did, and then for the years following, we just didn't ever find a time where we could both do it, because it was always going to be that I'd do it with Lindsay. And we couldn't find a time when either one of us were free. And then there was a global pandemic, and most of the things people were doing were at home and audio based. And I was like, Lindsay, do you think now might be probably the best time ever?
And also, we were doing Zoom gigs very quickly, and lots of them were either fundraisers for good causes, or they were fundraisers for comedy clubs to keep them going.
Yep.
So you quite quickly agreed to do quite a few of them, and I agreed to do them, but I at the time was doing a TV show in my house, and so was quite used to just speaking to an audienceless environment where you're just looking down the barrel of a webcam. So to me, it was not a huge change to my daily routine. But you also agreed to do all of them. And then suddenly we're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I've got to do these things.
Oh, God. And I actually started doing a few of them as Pat Springleaf.
And that's, because I remember
I'd forgotten that until you just said
I think it was for Excess Malarkey, which is a great club in Manchester. They were doing Zoom gigs, again, to keep these comedy clubs open. And Toby Haydoke, who runs Excess Malarkey, is a very nice man. And so as soon as he asked us, we all said yes. And I remember the Zoom window popping up, and I was like, there he is, Springleaf, you're in the jacket. Well, was that just out of panic?
It was out I've got to do something. To be fun. It was out of there's a global pandemic. All any of us are going to be talking about is that.
Yeah.
I've got nothing. I've got no jokes. I haven't been writing anything. Also, I've just finished touring a show where I speak very personally about my actual life, and I kind of don't want to jump on Zoom and do that even more.
Cold Lasagna, Hate Myself 1999, available on Vimeo.
and now available on my website actually.
JamesAcaster.com.
And so yeah, I just started doing those Zooms as Springleaf because I thought that will be a more fun way of talking about everything that's going on at the minute rather than me just kind of doing a therapy session directly down the camera. I did a few of them like that.
Yeah.
I was just myself and it was just talk at the camera. But yeah, the ones I did as Springleaf were the most fun Zoom gigs.
Yeah, because it was a funny, because Pat Springleaf was trying to catch people who were breaking social distancing.
Yeah, he was very very much on top, really loved the rules and the government for the great job.
Springleaf should have checked out 10 Downing Street if he wanted to see COVID rules being broken. Yes, that's right. It is a bit of satire.
From the best in the game.
And was that part of the thing where you thought,
yeah,
there's still more to do?
That reminded me that I really enjoy that whole character and the ruse of it. And then did make me think, oh, hold on a second. Everything I'm doing at the minute is basically audio based. Now I've done there's a Tom Crane and Henry Packer have a sitcom that was on Radio 4 called Reincarnation, which is very good. And they asked me to do a part in that, and which I was able to record in my living room. And I was like, hold on a second, we can totally do this Springleaf thing now because everyone's locked down. It did take longer to do it. So then when we did record it, no one was locked down anymore, but it got it off the ground and going again.
How much has the idea changed? I mean, the basic bones of the idea, the basic bones of Pat Springleaf is pretty much the same as it was in 2013. It's still an undercover cop posting as a comedian to infiltrate a gang dealing drugs at comedy shows.
Yeah.
But then so you then have this secondary idea of you could play the wire recordings and then the cop could be defending himself. So and then there's a third layer that goes on to that of having comedian guests on.
Yeah.
Where did that come in? Because that seems to me to be the final stage that gets us to Springleaf.
I think just through doing, in the last however many years, 5 or so years, doing so many podcasts in my actual life.
Yeah.
And so therefore, being like, okay, I know how to send this up now.
Yeah, right.
And I know how to mess around with it. And I know that it will be more entertaining if he's got someone in the studio with him who's not involved in the case, who's the voice of the listener in some way, who he can defend himself to.
Yeah.
Because he's not self-aware enough to necessarily know that he's fucked up all the time. Whereas if there's someone in the room going like, "Why did you do that? And what is this?" Then he can. Then that means he has to actually explain himself properly, which was the key.
Yeah, because obviously the other character is Adams, the podcast producer, but you felt like, we still need one more person completely outside of it.
And the more that I wrote it, the more it's like, I didn't want her to be a one-note character who's just going, why did you do that? You're stupid for the whole 10 episodes. You want it to be someone who's got their own journey and you learn more about them as it goes on as well. And it's nicer to see them kind of in their own way get closer as it goes on and not just have it that she's always going, you're a moron, what is this? So in the first episode she can be that, but then as it goes on you want it to be
couldn't have cast that part better.
Kath Hughes
couldn't have been anyone else.
Been a big fan of Kath Hughes for a very, very long time, since I first saw her in Games Family Gift Shop, which would have been probably 10 years ago. Always I have a false memory of her, it turns out, because I said to her, for Adams, I want it to be, I said, do you remember when you did that sketch and there was a bit in game and you did a sketch and then you kind of start on an audience member, you pulled a knife on them? She was like, I didn't know. She's like, you told me this so many times over the years that you loved that bit, and I've never done it. I never had a bit where I pulled a knife out. I was like, I swear you had a little knife and walked up to someone, and she's like, I didn't. Like I just, but I was like, well, that in my head, that's what you did, and it was really funny. And I just want Adams to be this person who's really confrontational and won't take any shit.
I remember that sketch.
Yeah.
Did you incept me?
Maybe we've Mandela affected each other, but yeah, it was always going to be Kath in that. In the taster, it was Kath.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic.
Well, look, I've asked one question and we're 19 minutes in, so this was clearly not. We go up the pace. Luckily, the next question is much more from the stupider end, and we love it. What Pokemon does Pat have? That's from an anonymous person.
wants everyone to like him. There's no way he doesn't have all the Pokemon because he would want them all. He wouldn't want any Pokemon to feel left out.
Yeah.
He would feel bad if he didn't catch a Pokemon. So he would catch every Pokemon that would come up on the app. He'd have multiples of every single one. And then he would want to make the main thing he'd want to do on Pokemon is make friends with people. And just make as many friends as he can and get it to best friend status with every single one of them. If anyone got Pokemon Go, you know that is a possibility.
That question has been asked, and I assume the anonymous interlocutor is aware of this because James is obsessed with Pokemon.
I've got it on my phone, and I said I got it on my phone and I'm ready to bone, but that's not a phrase. Or true about anyone who plays Pokemon. But yeah,
you've had 2 sips of beer and you've just used the phrase, I've got it on my phone and I'm ready to buy.
Pat Springleaf would have 2 sips of beer and start saying that.
Have there ever been other undercover? This is another great question. Have there ever been other undercover cops posing as comedians? Was Starsky and Hutch actually Tom Davis and Greg Davies? Was the Sweeney actually Josh Whittaker and Rob Beckett?
I mean, for one, Davis and Davis,
the least undercover people in human history.
Too tall.
Too tall.
You can't have 2 tall ones.
I would say mix those 2 double acts up.
Yeah.
Tom and Beckett.
Yeah.
And then Greg and Josh.
I'd watch that. I'd watch either one of those. Look, I can't reveal anyone's secret identities. It would be unprofessional of me. But let me just say, there was an undercover cop in the comedy scene, but now he got out of the game.
And let's just say he's Mickey Flanagan.
They're gonna have my guts for garters.
Kate has asked, what's been the biggest challenge when creating / producing the Springleaf podcast?
I mean, I think a lot of the time, I think I've watched a lot of interviews with writers in order to comfort myself that is the hardest bit.
Right, yeah.
Is when you're just sat at your laptop and you're having to come up with it. I'm quite good at just making myself do it every day, but keeping the old confidence up.
Yeah, right.
When it's at the bad stage is the tough bit, when you're like, currently this is not what I wanted it to be. And once you get it there and you get it to what you want, great. And I really loved recording it with everyone. I really love editing it when you get to make it the proper thing.
Yeah.
And get it over the line. And I really like the planning stages of it, actually, before you start writing, when you're just planning out everything and all the different storylines, all the characters and all the arcs and stuff. That's very satisfying. I would say the third draft is the hardest bit.
Yeah.
When you're like,
because also there has to be a plot, right? Because otherwise, if it was just a load of jokes.
Yeah. And I got the plot already, and that was all there. Yeah. I think the main thing when I was writing it, so I'd got the plot. I really liked that. I really liked the storylines, and so maybe it was like coming up with jokes that I genuinely liked as I was going through it, that weren't just like chucked in there.
Yeah, right.
So I need a joke there. It was like, no, you have to find this funny.
Yeah.
It has to actually be your sense of humor. Don't just go, because this isn't your homework that you're getting marked by someone, and they can go, yep, that's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke.
Yeah.
It has to be what you find funny, because otherwise no one else is going to laugh at it. So that was the thing a lot of the time, was kind of being, when you're doing an independent project, especially, you're like, no one else is going to pull you up on this. Like, you have to actually say to yourself, do you find that funny, James? And be honest that you don't, and change it. And that was that was always the hard bit, was like, no, come on, that's not what you want from a joke. If you heard that in someone else's sitcom, you wouldn't laugh. So in fact, you'd roll your eyes. So make sure it's the kind of joke you want. And there's some of them, even as we were recording, I'll be like, actually, no, change that. I thought it was funny, but I was wrong.
Right.
And some of them, even in the edit process, we go, nope, and then get rid of it at that point. And that is a great feeling.
Yeah.
To not let yourself get away with it. But yeah, I'd say that the being honest with yourself about the jokes during the writing process.
We've had 2 questions, actually, one from John and the other from Tree Wizard. Respect. Asking whether there will be any either in the remaining episodes of the series, I believe there's 3 left to come out, or in any future projects, any shedding of light on Pat's time as a lollipop person in Loughborough, and sorry, lollipop person and or a community support officer in Loughborough. Will there be any references to that?
Not in this series. Obviously, the option is there if we do it. At the minute, I wanted to do this series that it was just like this would be it.
Yeah.
And if this is all we put out, then it makes sense. And we've done the thing that we set out to do. We're really proud of it. Blah blah blah.
10 years in the making.
10 years in the making. But there is that option. Obviously,
Yeah.
there is that world that is that I did in the stand-up shows. I think it would be harder in this format or anything else to go into that, because in the stand-up shows, I guess it was a bit easier to be like, this is just silly now. Like, this is just so silly that he's managed to, like, I guess actually in the arc of things, he's already been in a lollipop. He's already done the lollipop stuff.
Yeah, right.
He starts out as a, and that's the thing as well, is that I changed the storyline a bit for this.
Yeah.
Of his con artist days are different. It's not the honey business.
Yeah, right.
I thought it might be a bit tricky to explain that, but I mean, maybe I should have done that. But like, yeah, all that stuff's behind him, I guess. So he's already been a lollipop man. And he's still got to do jury service. So maybe that'll be. Although I did try and make a jury service thing.
There was a sitcom pilot. It was very good.
Thank you.
But it would be funny. It would be more of a stretch for Pat to release wire recordings of jury deliberations.
Yeah. But also, I in the pilot of We the Jury, I play Pat Springleaf.
Oh yes, of course, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just bothering the courtroom artist and asking if he's a bit of a drawer.
Yeah, right.
But I've got the Springleaf jacket on, and the plan for that series was that I was a cop who was involved in the case, who was unprofessionally getting involved,
right,
all the time, and would be like a fringe character who was going in and out of it. So I was going to play Pat Springleaf, but as a cop, not on the jury, like in the stand-up show. So again, just like changing it a bit for that, and I had, obviously I had the whole series planned out, and beyond series 1 and stuff, and there's a lot that Springleaf did, very unprofessional, but a lot of befriending the jury, being friends with them, and all of this. But yeah, we didn't get to do that in the end. So,
but you're not closing the door on. We don't know what's going to happen with Pat Springleaf.
Never close the door. If anything presents itself and we think of a good way of doing it,
yeah,
we're going to do it. But also, we're not going to do anything for the sake of it and then ruin it.
John has asked if you've been to Kansas City before. Because of all the sugar on the barbecue, it seems like it would be right up your alley. Have you been to Kansas City before?
I haven't. I'd love to. I'd love to put sugar on a barbecue.
John has now asked a question of me, asking if there's been a noticeable increase in people offering me drugs. There has not been. What there has been a noticeable increase of is people commenting on all of my tweets and under all my Instagram posts. You seem pretty high right now.
Well, that's good. It's good that people are getting aware of it.
People have been respectful. So when I've posted links for fundraisers for Palestine, they haven't underneath gone, "Did you post this while you were high on drugs?" So they've been respectful. They've been respectful. They've been respectful of that. But they've decided, they've kept it clean. On the subject of my character, Monica has asked a lot of very good questions, and we'll be pinging in and out of Monica's questions through the show. Monica has said this: I'd love to hear more about the decision to make Nish a drug-obsessed simpleton. Literally so funny. All of his scenes, from the sparkly panel appearance to the "Dude, Where's My Car" scene, are epic. Why have you done this?
Well, I think simpleton's too. That's too far. That's too far. I wouldn't call him a simpleton. I mean, okay, there's 2 reasons why. One is that obviously, and anyone who's watched Taskmaster will know that Nish Kumar is not always a smart, intelligent politics man. He is sometimes a buffoon who cannot do the simplest of tasks and screams very loudly at the top of his voice, messes it up, and then kind of enjoys the fact that he's been able to cut loose and
I can turn multitudes.
He's given his chin a bit of a a break from being stroked constantly, and he's instead falling on his ass and rolling around. So like, obviously, as his friend, I'm more familiar with that version of Nish on a day-to-day basis. So it actually wasn't even a decision to make him an idiot.
But also, we should say that in the last few years, I've been traveling to California and Canada for work, which both of which have legal marijuana, and on occasion I have partaken. Sue me.
And when he partakes, he makes a very big deal about it, like saying phrases like "sue me" and using
God, I love
phrases,
weed.
yeah, saying I love weed and for stuff like that. And then my role in that joke has been to call him to say to him, "You are addicted to drugs and you have a problem," and to not
not indulge anything.
not indulge anything, and just to text him saying you have a serious problem and you need to get help. When he's just eating some weed gummies or something, and I'll be very serious about it, and then he will. So that's been like a little joke for the last couple of years that we've enjoyed.
Yeah.
So when writing this, and it's like, right, there's got to be a comedian who's my number one client, and originally it was going to be Phil Wang, and I told Phil, I'm going to make it that you're my number one client. I deal you all the drugs. He was like, oh, okay. He didn't seem to like it. And I was like, that seems to have made Phil quite sad. Who likes that idea? Oh, well, obviously Nish likes that idea because we joke about it all the time. And actually, that'd be funny making it Nish because it's so against what people know of Nish and expect from him. And then it was very, very easy to write him as an idiot, and know that he would throw himself into that role also. And not just with Nish, but with a lot of comics, it's been a great pleasure. I've just taken a lot of pleasure putting their characters through um, bad situations where often a lot of very physical pain is inflicted on them or something like that. And then to really enjoy it in the edit with the sound effects. Having Nish swallow a taser was something that we took a very long time on in the edit of finding different sound effects to make it sound exactly the way we had it in our heads. My sister has it as her ringtone now. When she gets a text message, it's Nish getting the sound of Nish swallowing a taser and getting frazzed. And I'm very pleased with that. That it did what we wanted it to do. And there's a few comics. There's definitely in the last episode of Miles Jupp and in
I'm excited about the forthcoming episode.
There's some stuff with another comedian.
Yeah, I don't think we should say. I don't think we should say who it is because it's too funny. It's just the funniest possible person.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, those bits were some of the most fun bits to do in the edit. And also actually recording Nish getting frazzed was fun because it just Nish screaming for a very long
I think
time.
there's probably a video of that. It was there were a couple of things that happened when because also in the recording process, obviously it's such a big cast, not everyone was able to be there at the same time. But the bits that I recorded, we recorded like an old radio play. Like I think there was a point where I was in with Nat Metcalf, Evelyn Mock, Jason Forbes, Freya Parker, and we were stood in like a semicircle, like it was like recording a radio play. And me getting frazzed, we found very hard to do because everyone kept laughing. And Jason doing Squawkly, we found very that was very difficult.
Jason Forbes does a lot of different characters throughout the series, and is very good at knowing exactly the right way to deliver any line to make it funny. Even if it's not written funny, he's very good at making it funny. And Squawkly was a silly character anyway. It's a parrot who's in a double act with Mark Silcox and wants to be big. And he would always start it with like and like and really Squawkly, I can do that.
There's no run up to it.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the cast is it's a mixture of like people playing themselves, who where it's like playing with the public persona of them, and then there's just people in it like Kath, like Freya, and like Jason, who are just amazing comedy actors that you can just throw anything at. It was the fact that Jason, there was no discussion about what Squawkly was going to sound like. He just had the lines and knew he was voicing a parrot.
It's a parrot. He knew how to do it.
I'm going to follow up with three quick questions. If you will, starter, main course, and dessert. Pat Springleaf, poppadoms or bread?
Springleaf would, I mean, Springleaf would go for whatever the person who's asked him would go for.
Is Springleaf's in an Indian restaurant?
Yeah, he's going
Poppadoms all the way.
poppadoms every time.
Yeah.
But then he's also getting a load of naan. He doesn't want to.
Doesn't want to upset the apple.
Yeah, he's like going just in case. He's going both every time.
What would Pat Springleaf's dream menu be?
Well, bowl of punch for his dream drink, obviously. I'm trying to think what other foods are in that show because obviously there must be.
Yeah, there
and a
must
lot
be.
of food routines.
The pret a manger.
Yeah, he would have.
What's the thing?
He
It's
would
that he
have
doesn't
the
mix
yogurt
it.
for dessert. The pret a manger yogurt for his dessert. He would not have a free banana on the menu. Obviously, that's made very clear in that show. Oh God, I bet there are people who know that show better than me who are now going, "Oh, come on, you
What are
said
the
this
other
food."
Yeah,
bruv."
what are the other? I can't remember if there are other food stuffs mentioned.
I mean, I guess he would have the free tacos from Oaxaca as his starter.
Yeah, right.
And for his main course, probably I don't know. I mean, ready to eat apricots, I guess.
Yeah, that's it's a disgusting meal. It's an absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. It's unacceptable.
Revolting.
You serve that, you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And the third off-menu related question: which member of the gang would have the most surprising order from the dream restaurant and why?
Huey, who is Nathaniel Metcalf's character, because his life, the glimpses that you do get into his life are always quite surprising. The fact that he lives on a street called Honeysuckle Way in a cul-de-sac, and drives a Tesla. Those things are very surprising compared to his actual personality, which was an absolute rage-driven maniac. So, like, I think he would end up liking food that no one could have predicted. Very fine dining, excellent palate, despite the fact he spends all day bashing people's brains in.
There's two phrases that I think, one of which Huey uses a lot, that I think of as like, I can imagine you coming up with them and making yourself laugh for ages. One is Jesus Louises.
Yeah.
Jesus Louises, and the other is I don't give a flying fuck into a rolling donut.
Well, that I didn't even come up with that.
Really?
That, I saw an interview with the director William Friedkin, who, if for those of you who don't know, is French Connection and
The Exorcist. Yeah.
He died last year, and so I went down this wormhole of just watching loads of interviews with him, and you can find it online. There's an interview. He's a very plain speaking man, just says whatever is on his mind. He doesn't mince his words. Very entertaining interviews whenever he's interviewed. And there's a point where he was asked about Al Pacino had not liked a change that was made to his character in a film, and the guy is saying to him like, so Al Pacino said that he didn't like this because it changed his character. And before he even got through the sentence, William Friedkin went, I could give a flying into a rolling donut what Al Pacino thinks. And then did a whole thing about how he doesn't respect Pacino. Me and my friend Al Clayton, who works at and owns Turtle Canyon, and I've done a lot of stuff with. We're texting that to each other a lot. And then I think I put it in the first episode. And then in every episode, they just presented an opportunity for someone to say that. So in every single episode of Springleaf, a different character says,
Yeah, right.
I don't give a flying fuck into a rolling donut, or a variation of that.
You love doing that because I think you've used the phrase bunch of piece of shit.
Yeah.
Maybe is it Cold Lasagna?
It's in it's actually in I think it's in one of the Netflix ones.
Right.
But then I probably also used it in Cold
But that's
Lasagna.
from an interview with Dick Gregory.
Yeah, Dick Gregory said that which film was it? It was a Don Cheadle movie.
Yeah, it was the Don Cheadle Miles Davis movie.
Yeah, you seen that Miles Davis movie?
Yeah,
it's a bunch of piece of shit. And he didn't say it. He didn't misspeak. That's what he wanted to say. It's a bunch of piece of shit. And yeah, I watched that a lot and really loved that he said it. And then he just started saying it.
I don't know if you know about this, but this is like I think this is part of the reason that I refused, even though now we all should leave Twitter. One of the reasons I will never is I actually talked to William Friedkin on Twitter once.
Wow.
Because I tweeted as a joke. It was like the Sight and Sound poll in 2012 where they polled the greatest films of all time. And I tweeted as a joke, breaking news, Citizen Kane dethroned as greatest film of all time by Hans Moleman's man getting hit by a football. And I tagged it a hashtag Sight and Sound. And William Friedkin responded and said, it's about time. And I said, I am a big fan of your work. And he said, as much as Moleman.
That's great. Also, because I went down the wormhole and watched loads of Friedkin interviews, I know that Citizen Kane is his favorite film of all time. He says it in every interview. So the fact that he took that in the spirit it was intended is testament to that.
Testament to Friedkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are one of Monica's asked some amazing questions. Regarding the recordings, how often were the plays in the same room, or at least being recorded simultaneously, and were they able to work off each other, or was it more their interpretation of the lines as they were written? So I was obviously there on a couple of days where we managed to get a lot of the key people for each scene. Like there would be, I remember Mark Silcox couldn't do that day.
Yeah.
So someone else had to read his lines when Jason was doing Squawkly, but most of the people were there.
I mean, the scheduling. So Lindsay Fenner and Katie Sayer basically had to schedule all that.
Like, that is a nightmare job.
However many people are in this thing,
yeah,
and try and figure out a way that we could make it work and have as many people in there. So most of the time, when it's the studio scenes, we're not in the same room together. We did those over Zoom. Some of them we were in the same room. Tom Allen was in the same room as Tom, and Joe Lycett was in the same room as Joe.
Lycett, it had to be.
But yeah, for most of the others, we did them over Zoom. Also, all of Kima Bob's stuff had to be done over Zoom because she wasn't in the country. So we did those over Zoom with Kima. But that was while the rest of us were in the studio and would hear Kima.
That's right. Yeah.
In the cans.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the time it was a bunch of us in the room, and it was like when people could do it, and also like, you know, if you're in the same scene together, you're there. And so the scheduling for that was very difficult. I can't imagine. And then also we had to like jump from one, because it would depend who you had in the room. So you go, okay, say we've got like Donal, Nathaniel, Nish. Then it's like, okay, what are all the scenes that we're in together? We have to do all of them across the whole series now. So I had to do a lot of catching people up. Okay, now your character's in this point and you're feeling like this. And then the next thing we'd do would be like, right, this is now 5 episodes later. All this has happened to you and you're feeling this way. And then the next scene, okay, this is back in the first episode and now you're feeling like this. So like there was a lot of like jumping around, and it made it fun and pretty. There wasn't like a dull moment. You couldn't really you know, just relax for a bit. But it meant that we got a lot of like silliness and a lot of like jumping around, and but yeah, we like contained groups each time, one after the other. So about, I don't know. I don't know what percentage of it was we're all in the same room, but pretty high.
It's all as scripted, I would say.
Yeah, there's some little bits
of it.
There's some bits, and like, you know, there's you have quite a few bits that you ad-libbed, and when Nish comes around for being frazzed, I did not write the phrase "was that" in the script.
That absolutely rings of something I did not think would make the final edit.
Yeah, he put it in and we kept it in. But there's a few bits. It's a few. Donal improvised quite a few bits.
Yeah.
In the last episode that's gone out, the 7th one, after he shot Miles Jupp, he then, I don't know why I didn't put this in the script, but improvised. Is that Miles Jupp? Which was like, I was like, oh yeah, that should be in there.
I mean, it's a pretty nuts cast.
It's pretty bonkers.
Gleason, Natalie Cassidy.
Yeah, it really fun having those two in the same room. We had them on mics next to each other, so anytime there's a scene where they were arguing, they would literally do. And you're like, well, I'm pretty glad I've made this happen. Pretty proud of myself here. But
we could talk about Finn. Well, we could just not talk about Finn Wolfhard.
We can talk about Finn Wolfhard. I'm fine talking about Finn Wolfhard.
Only because have you discussed his role?
I don't know if we have talked about it publicly. Maybe I did it on the last thing, but like obviously he's credited, and I don't know how many people I think if you go on Spotify, you see who plays who, and you can
Right,
work
okay.
it out. But I don't know how many people have gone like, when's the Finn Wolfhard cameo going to be in this? He's been in it a lot.
He's been in it a lot. He's been in it
Um,
so much.
he plays a character called Serpico, who is the dog. And all of the dog yapping and all of the dog barking and growling and whining is all Finn doing it. And we just sat down.
Also, yeah, we should make clear he didn't like do 5 and then you're just looping them. He every time Serpico barks, it's a different.
Yeah, there's a thing we might put it out at some point as just a 45-minute long recording session where I am reading off of a bit of paper saying, okay, yap with pleasure, yap in agreement, bark disgruntledly, and he's just having to interpret all of that one after the other on the spot. We got way more than we needed. But like there's a lot of scenes where where Serpico is barking or yapping or interacting with people, and so it's great to have so many different ones, and it's just funny.
When did you come up with the idea of Finn being the dog?
It was I was doing a film with him anyway, Ghostbusters. That's not a secret.
Bustin' makes me feel good.
We were hanging out a lot. He's a laugh.
He's a laugh.
And
good laugh.
I started to we were gearing up to record Springleaf.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it would be cool to put Finn in this, but there's no character really for him. And then I was like,
and then you remembered the dog.
Well, we were just going to use those of archived dog noises. But wouldn't it be funny, like in South Park when they get George Clooney to be there?
Yeah.
We just do the next generation of that because Finn is his generation's Clooney, and just record Finn do loads of dog barks. And I was like, I'll ask him. Hopefully, he won't find it offensive. And he was up for it. And the most ridiculous part of it was when he came into the studio to do it. On that day, the guy who owned the studio had coincidentally brought his dog in, who was barking all the fucking time. And we could have just put that dog in the studio and got legitimate dog noises, but instead we shut that dog out of the studio and recorded.
Shut up, dog! We're trying to record this guy barking.
Yeah, so that was fun. And then there's also, yeah, it's just a dog, but the dog's got an arc.
The dog has an arc. Yeah,
the dog's got an arc, and you can't say it doesn't. So I'm not just
Wolfhard's good, man. Wolfhard's good.
He's very good.
He's really good.
To be honest, there are points where I'm editing it and I forget that it's him. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a dog. I'm like, that's not a dog. This kid's good.
That's your friend, a human man.
Yeah, he's 21-year-old man. Yeah. Just nailing this dog noise. So yeah, props.
Alex has asked, why are the gangs SW5 and SW6?
Originally, it was because when I wrote the stand-up routine about being in the SW6 gang, I did live in SW6 in London, so I just made it that, and I didn't have at the time, I wouldn't say I have obsessive fans now. I don't think no one's ever stalked me down to my house, and I hope they never do.
Yeah.
But definitely at that time, that wasn't even a concern. So I was like, yeah, I'll give away the first half of my postcode. Who gives a shit?
I definitely remember being surprised seeing you do that for the first time and going, that is where he lives. That is literally where he lives.
Yeah. It's not where I live anymore.
No, he doesn't live there anymore. Bad luck if you've gone to SW5 or SW6.
So that's good. But yeah, at the time it was just where I lived, and I changed it. And actually it was the original routine about someone shouting out their full postcode was based on something that had happened in Northampton when people were shouting their postcodes at each other, and someone did get carried away and not shout their full postcode, but they carried on beyond the normal number and nearly went into their full postcode and had to stop themselves. I didn't see it myself. My friend saw it on a bus.
Ricardo wants to know, would Springleaf consider recording a podcast that consisted of sleep time fairy tales like The Fable of the Goose and the Sloth?
I think Springleaf would do it, but I've tried in the past to do a children's book that is Acaster's Fables. Acaster spelled AECASTER, like Aesop.
I don't mind it.
Yeah. And we're going to do a load of fables like The Goose and the Sloth and have it just full of that kind of stuff.
Why has that not happened?
Because it turns out that writing a kid's book is a lot harder to get past Like, I found that writing an adult book,
It's an absolute piece of
people just
piss.
go, yeah, do what you want. You speak to the kids section, it's like you're trying to get a TV show commissioned. Like, there's
Yeah, that's
a
interesting.
lot of hoops to jump through, and you get, and it's also for, look, I'm not a greedy man, but it's for a lot less money. And there was a point where I was like, do you know what? I don't think they're going to let me write the book that I want to write.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to end up putting loads of work into it and not actually liking the book.
Right, yeah.
And that's not worth not getting paid much for. So so I didn't do it. So but maybe in the future I'll just take it to the adult section and go, just let me write this. We'll
Yeah,
put
it
it
does
out
feel like
as just a book. Who
yeah,
cares?
yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But yeah, there was a time where that was very much the plan. And yeah. I think a couple of times tried to get that off the ground.
Michael asks, do you have any favorite pieces of cut content from the podcast? Given that you've talked already about how much you enjoy the process of editing and winnowing it down into a shape you're happy with, is there anything that you would have liked to include that you were not able to include?
I think everything that I've edited out, I felt good about. So I'm just gone, that has to go.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think if there's been stuff, because I think, this is annoying now. Maybe Lindsay will remember, but like, I think there was something that I felt like there's that phrase that you got to kill your babies with editing. And I think there was
Not
one,
life advice.
not life advice.
Opposite of life advice. You got to keep your babies alive. But
that's the
then
point.
when it comes to scripts,
Kill your babies. But I mean, yeah, you don't have to be graphic about it. But there was something we cut out where I was just like, oh, do you know what? This just has to go for pacing.
was it the speech where I said, "Don't do drugs, kids"?
No, of course not. There's no such speech in this show. Do you know what? I don't think there is. Like, trying to think if there's any like big bit we cut out that we were like, oh, we're gutted about that. But it was mainly little lines here and there, and a lot of the time I was glad to see the back of it. I was like, yeah, that feels good. That feels good to get rid of that. And if it didn't feel good, we would probably put it back in because that meant it should stay in if you miss
Right.
it. So
Did you set a rule for yourself about episode? You must have set a rule for yourself about episode length, right? Because these, in theory, these could have been, there was no limit to the length.
yeah, but weirdly, they all just kind of came out the same.
Really?
Like, yeah. It was like, first draft was just, let's just get from A to B.
Yeah, right.
But they would all like clocking in at around the same time.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then as I edited them down and, to get longer and then shorter, longer than shorter, they would continue to do that. And then by the end they went, but no, I wanted it to be half. I didn't want it to be I didn't want any episode to last longer than it needed to. And I wanted to keep them as short as possible, so that we would keep people engaged and we wouldn't like get too high on our own supply. But yeah, I mean, half an hour was the goal.
Not me, man. I love getting high on my own supply.
You're not a dealer in it, so I'm the dealer. So you're high on my supply. We should have put that in the script, actually.
What I said, I love getting high on my own supply. It's my supply.
It's my supply.
You're getting high.
I wouldn't be the one to correct them. Also stupid. It would be Evelyn who would have to correct you getting high on his supply.
Now, there are multiple questions about the vomiting sound effect.
Oh, yeah?
People are thrilled about the puking scene.
Good.
We've got multiple questions about the like the sort of how that sound design came together.
Yeah.
And what Heather has said, they will never leave my mind in reference to the vomiting sounds.
Yeah.
Why did you make them so stylized?
So when I just well, when I was writing it and I was like, you put in that he's asked to go and be sick out of anxiety.
Yeah.
That he's going to go and be sick. And then with each draft, it's like I was saying earlier about you have to just be like, does that make me laugh? And if it doesn't, I have to take it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, just the thought of like, oh, I'm going to be sick. Like, as an adult, the idea of an adult just going, I'm going to puke now. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's not funny to me to go, oh, puke.
Yeah.
And that's it. But what you don't, because what is funny is being surprised. And I don't expect to hear it for ages, especially on an audio sitcom where surely you shouldn't be playing that for ages.
I could not believe how long it went on for.
Yeah, so it was like let's do the surely we should have fun with that and do that. So I decided that in the edit, I was like, each time let's just record it for as long as possible. And also, like in that episode, it was that Adams gets a load of new plugins because Josh Widdicombe's paid us some money. So I was like, the final time she should be using all of her plugins, and
Yeah,
whether
right.
that
Yeah,
will
yeah.
register to the audience or not is fine. They don't have to get that, but it would be cool to like have the last one just have loads of sound effects on it and be layered up. And so obviously on the day, it was just me at a microphone doing those for a very, very long time. And then in the edit, it was like, right, let's decide. And like, he's sick 3 times. He's sick 3 times in the episode. But the second one, it was like, okay, because the first one, it's like, it's funny to do it for a really long time. And it's just him being sick. But then the second one is like, actually, let's cut it as soon as he retches.
Yeah.
As soon as he heaves, let's cut it before he's actually sick.
Yeah.
Because that's what they don't. They think it's going to happen
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
And then it stops again. And then it just felt funnier to do it like that. But then the third time, we should do it for the longest that we do it for. And we should layer up all these sound effects on it more and more. And just keep it going and going and going and end the episode on it. So just that would be funny. But like the thing about like, so obviously we do loads of like drafts of the edit.
Yeah.
And so Charlie, who edits all of these episodes, I don't know if I'll give her full name, so I'm about to give her, but like her name is on.
Her name's on the credits.
But she's a fantastic editor, and I owe her a lot of apologies because she has misophonia, where means that she can't hear people eating. And hearing people be sick isn't a million miles away.
It's not far enough away.
And there's a lot of people eating on it as well. There's a lot of like, people on the podcast eating stuff quite disgustingly a lot of the time. So there's that too that happens. But the being sick thing, I was like, sorry, Charlie, but we're gonna have to extend this. I want it even longer. And especially for that last bit, I was like, we need more crazy effects on it. So you're gonna have to listen to it all again, that last bit. And eventually I had also, because Charlie's such a good editor, she would do the effects really professionally. And I was like, no, this is like Adam's doing it, who isn't as good as you.
So you have to do it worse.
You have to try and be bad. No, like you're not as good at your job as you are. So then she had to just do it even more and put all these effects on it, and which made, and also effects that made it sound grosser. Because so it took a very long time to get that. And I put a very skilled and talented woman through a lot of unnecessary trauma that I really hope doesn't come back and bite me in decades to come. And it's like he made me do this, and I still have recurring nightmares about it. But yeah, obviously, a lot of the sick hitting the water, that's just sound effects. We didn't get Finn Wolfhard to do it. I think.
If you got Wolfhard to do the vomiting, I'd have lost my mind.
Puke for 45 minutes, Wolfhard.
When I'm looking down, I'm looking at my mobile phone because that's where all the questions, because there are still questions coming in, which is very exciting. So I'm not just being rude. Someone has asked me if I'm worried about the drugs material affecting my family or even my future work. What I will say to you is what your partner once said about me, which is everything he says makes him sound like he's never taken drugs in his life.
Yeah, the character.
No, she meant that about
you
me.
in real life as well, to be fair. I mean, the character does mainly refer to them as drugs.
Yeah, which
can I buy some drugs? I love drugs.
I think that my first line is, Pat Springleaf, please may I buy some drugs?
Yeah, Pat Springleaf, you're a sight for sore eyes. Please may I buy some drugs?
Yeah, no, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I don't think anyone will listen to that and think this guy's out of control.
Yeah.
He's high as a blooming kite.
Also, he's quite a happy. He doesn't really ever go dark. At any point or anything like that.
Is there going to be a blooper reel released? Alex asks.
Maybe. I mean, probably. There's some stuff.
We love bloopers.
We do love bloopers.
Love bloopers.
The two of us, along with some of our friends, have just sat in one of our living
Yeah.
rooms on several occasions, watching YouTube bloopers together.
We love.
Oh, put on the Eastbound and Down bloopers again. Haven't
I
even
can,
seen
I
Eastbound
can
and Down,
feel it down in my
for
plums.
example. A load of
The Dinner Party Office episode.
Dinner Party
So
Office
the Dinner
episode.
Party episode of The American Office is one of the best sitcom episodes of all time, and it also features several of the greatest bloopers
Yeah.
of all time.
Well, I met Paul Feig because we interviewed him for Off Menu, who directed that episode, and
Brilliant.
I had a lot of questions. I was like, man, but I was, when you're quoting to someone the bloopers from something they directed, that's when you go, I think I'm creeping this guy out. Well, I'm like, how about when they all laughed because he kept on pushing the TV back into the wall? Like, yeah, I kind of remember that.
They're getting a bluish hue. Couple of variations on this question has been asked. Did you get the cast that you were hoping for? Was there somebody that you wanted to feature but couldn't make it work for scheduling reasons?
I mean, I did get the cast. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, got beyond the cast
Yeah.
that I was hoping for. Like, was there anyone who couldn't do it? Well, not not really. I mean, to be honest, there was one part that hasn't come up yet, so I won't ruin who it is.
Yeah.
But who I actually weirdly didn't have them in mind for. I basically miscast it in my head, and luckily, the person who I asked to do it couldn't do it, and then I miscast it two more times.
I remember this, yeah.
And then the person who ended up doing it, I was like, oh man, of course it's this. Like,
Mm.
I was so grateful that that when I'd got it wrong, those people couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because the person who did it, I was like, this is the best version of this
Yeah.
character.
Yes.
This makes the most sense. It is this person, and it's easily some of the like we're still editing the episode that this person is in. This is a later episode, and every time it gets to their bit, I laugh at it all the time, a lot. They absolutely nail it, and I mean, talk about bloopers. It's maybe the most I laughed during one of the Zoom recordings because it was just me and this guy, and I had to mute myself because I'm just laughing in my hotel room wherever I was on tour. Just I couldn't stop laughing at it because of how funny he was. So yeah, there was like the one thing I couldn't get ended up being actually led to the best person for the role.
And someone else has asked, in terms of the like celebrity cameos, the comedian cameos, was that all word for word scripted?
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, no. Sometimes it wasn't. No, like with Joe Lycett.
That's immediately what I was going to say. Some of that is just pure. You
Yeah.
got clearly you, Kath, and Joe fucking around.
Yeah, and giving Joe stuff. I remember there's a bit where like Joe and I are arguing. We were both drunk, and I was like feeding him stuff as we were going. I was like, because we were recording it separately, so we weren't actually shouting over each other. So I'd do my bits, and then Joe would do his bits, and I was just like, and I was saying like, say like, call me Hugo Boss, and like, and then like, really, because I didn't weirdly when I was writing it, didn't really have the idea of referencing stuff scams he had done,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
scams,
yeah.
pranks he had done directly. And then when we were recording, it was like, oh no, you should definitely do that actually. So I was like, just shout about the Beckham thing for ages. Now shout about like that about being called Hugo Boss and try and make me call you Hugo Boss. So there's a lot of that with Joe, and then Joe would just improvise off of that. And again, laughing a lot at Joe shouting, "Call me Hugo Boss, man! Say my name, call me Hugo Boss." Really, really made me laugh. So yeah, there was a bit of that where you just like and Miles Jupp. Actually, that's maybe one of the things that we cut out that was a shame. It was just for time. It just went on for too long, so it didn't work in the scene, the pace of the scene. But when Miles Jupp gets hot sauce sprayed in his eyes and is like in agony, we just said, just shout stuff for ages. And he started shouting about how he used to host the news quiz. So he was in pain, but shouting like, trying to identify himself to onlookers by saying like, I used to host the news quiz, and then explaining how he had to miss one episode because I think, hosting the carols or something. And he's trying to explain that while in pain. And it was just so funny, but like, it was just like, in the scene it didn't make sense pacing wise for it to go on for
Right,
that long,
right.
so we cut it down. But that's definitely one of the bits I was like, well, that's objectively funny. I really love it, but it just the scene just just goes on for too long if we use it. But yeah, he improvised that. And a few things actually, I think Miles improvised in his one as well. So yeah, there's quite a few people were able to bring stuff from their real life and put it in the improv.
CMOS has said, given the success of Mrs. Columbo, will there be a Mrs. Springleaf?
Well, that would be good.
Well, Mrs.
I mean,
Springleaf left you because you were getting too attached to the case.
but you could do. I mean, I don't want to give away the end of Sita's story, but you could follow that. You could. There's a whole TV or audio series in that, so you could do the ex Mrs. Springleaf.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
And her dog talent agency, animal talent agency.
Yes.
Well, look, we've gone over time, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the first question was 20 minutes. The first question, I will say, was very long, but it accidentally took in like 3 other questions that people had asked.
Yeah.
So we covered a lot of ground. So I guess I'll ask 2 more questions. The first one of which is, I don't know who's asked this, but it's a fantastic question. How would Pat Springleaf have done on Taskmaster? Oh, it's from Claire. How do you think Pat Springleaf would have done on Taskmaster? Because in the reality of Pat Springleaf,
Yeah.
the comedy career is going well.
Yeah.
How would he have done on Taskmaster?
I mean,
do you think he would have done any worse than the real James Acaster?
yeah, I think he would have come dead last, as opposed to second from last. I think he would have ruined
last in your series.
Phil Wang.
Oh God, of course it was Wang. Wang. And there's no shame in coming last in Taskmaster at all. There's no shame in it.
I would say
can't believe Watson beat me.
He would ruin his team tasks by trying to be friends with everyone and please everyone else. And he would get too lonely during his tasks on his own and miss everyone and mess those up. So yeah, not good. And then in the studio, would just be so eager to please Greg.
To please Greg, yeah.
He would happily go last in every task just to keep Greg happy.
And he'd just bring Greg actual presents that he think Greg would like.
Yeah, yeah. It'd just be each prize task would be stuff that he thought Greg would like.
I saw this scarf and I thought it would look good on you.
Yeah. Maybe that might actually get him a few points. He might do okay. Depends who he's against, I guess.
Yeah. And so look, it's been a fantastic time. We talked for 67 minutes about Springleaf. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. I hope you found it elucidating. Thanks very much for your money. Without wishing to be crass.
Yeah. No. Always thank you for that.
Thank you very much for your money.
And thank you for those questions.
Yeah, great questions, actually.
Good to hear. Yeah. And also, like, good to hear that certain bits of the show have stuck in your heads. Prompted some questions.
I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. Quite a few of them seem to have come from America. And so I'm really quite enjoying Americans who have interrupted their work day.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody from all over the world. My final question for you. Please, can I have some drugs?
Yes, of course, Nish. The usual. A little bit of everything.
Thanks for watching and thanks for sending in your questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. Remember, do drugs. Pure copy.
Pure copy.